There you go. We're live with Zsombor Pirok. Zsombor is co-founder and a game developer at Space Rock Games. Developed a bunch of cool games, Criminals Within, for example, in New Zealand. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico. This podcast is brought to you by my podcasting agency. If you want to start a podcast, if you want to monetize your podcast with AdSense or with sponsors or generating leads, you can go to podpar.com. I can help you start your podcast the unconventional way. We're going to have fun doing so. Plus, you're going to monetize in 90 days. So podpar.com. Zsombor, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for inviting me to this podcast. So I'm Zsombi, and I am a video game developer, but I have not always been a video game developer. I actually became I actually joined the industry once I moved to New Zealand. I'm originally not from New Zealand. I grew up in Hungary and moved over to New Zealand back in 2017. And at the time, I was working on various small startups in Europe, mostly as a marketer. I was just not really happy with what I was doing. I wanted to take part in a company's life a little bit earlier than what you traditionally would have as a marketer. And I was really interested in doing some sort of software development. It just happens to be a random chance that I started doing game development because when we moved over, we knew no one and I had nothing to do. So I went with my sister, who was a 3D animator at the time, who was applying for a school, and I walked in and there was this massive Assassin's Creed poster. Well, not even poster, it was a cardboard cutout. These really cool retro arcade machines that were actually computers, but were set up as arcade retro machines. It was super awesome. And it just told me they did a software course. So I was like, cool. Okay, I'm sold. And that's how I ended up starting to study game development. Quick jump to 2020 when we were graduating, and also at the same time as the COVID pandemics started. So that was a really good time to be a junior because no one was hiring. We basically got out of university, and the choices we had was either, well, we'll work on our portfolio for a year and maybe someone will pick us up, or just do it ourselves. And sounded like a crazy idea, but we decided that what the hell, let's see where it goes. And I remember from a marketer background, we didn't do any marketing. Like I did not do a good job at marketing the studio. And I remember I made a Reddit post on the r/inet Reddit page, which is the I need a team, where normally people post when, I'm looking for a programmer to join me on this rev share project or something like this. And I made a post like, we're a studio looking for work. And a YouTuber reached out to us, who was like, he's called Charai5. He's a really awesome dude. Basically, the kind of videos he makes is, what's the name? Everything wrong with this type of game, and just goes through a list. It's really, really cool. He was our first client. And we went from an initial 5 founders to 8 full-time people very, very quickly. And then there's a lot of things to cover in the middle, but basically where we are now is we're a 16 people studio. Now we are working on various games. People come to us, studios come to us to help them build their Unreal games. And yeah, next year is going to be very, very busy. I guess that's as an intro.
Yeah, that's a good intro. Thanks for that. I was looking at your games. They're pretty fun. The design and all. You've got some shooter in there. You specialize into one specific type of games, and how do you get your clients nowadays?
So I wouldn't say we specialize in a genre. we much more the things that we do is there are various engines you can build games with. Unreal Engine is one of them. What we specialize in is we do Unreal Engine games, so games made with the Unreal Engine. We have a very specific focus on the technical side of things. While we do cover all aspects of game development, that's our strength, which is engineering, technical art, uh, live ops, like all the things that is really, really hard to do. Those are the things that we specialize in. Primarily, we do PC and console games. So while we can do mobile games, like our heart really I'm a PC gamer, so I've been since I was 5 years old. Those are the areas we go in. There is a shooter we're working on. It's called Nexus. So if you're on our website, that's probably what you saw. Criminals Within is one of our original IPs. It is not released and will most likely not release for the next 3 years at least. And that's unfortunately because it requires a lot of funding to deliver. And we actually almost went bankrupt trying to deliver that game. So that's on the shelf at the moment. We don't want to go bankrupt, so it's probably going to stay on the shelf until we have a bit more revenue to be able to support it. And we're most likely going to release a smaller IP before that. You were asking, like, how do we find clients right now? Do I remember that well?
Yeah, well, I was asking how you find your clients, and the funding part's also interesting. So you're using the funding to develop your own IP, right?
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of the funds go into developing those IPs that we work on, but the excess revenue is saved up, and we want to use that for building an original IP. Because long term, every studio wants to be building their own IPs, and every game developer you hire wants to work on their own games. So you eventually need to do that if you want an awesome team to be staying with you for long.
That's 20% of your time. The own IP stuff, it's you spend 20% of your time or more.
Currently, at the moment, less because that was just a crazy amount of work that came in. So we needed to be able to scale up. At the beginning of March, this March, we were only 9 people, and we had to double in size in like 2 months. So that was we didn't have a chance to work on our own IP. But it is looking like now we're gonna have a little bit of space. The difference between Criminals Within and this new IP is Criminals Within would have required 30 people full time on this and $7 million to deliver, whereas the new IP that we are working on is much smaller, which means we can actually work on it while we work on our third-party IPs. So that requires 3 to 4 people on average and $1 million. So it's a lot more manageable for a studio who is doing third-party development work. But in terms of like how do we find clients, there's a couple of things we do. So I'm really happy because now we're getting organic outreaches. So someone just sends us a message of like, hey guys, let's talk. We have this game. We want to add this feature, or we want you to take over this game. And those are great emails to get because most of our clients are not small. We don't really have any client that comes in below $200,000. Like that's the smallest one, and it just goes up from there. So I would say like an average client size is maybe $1 million US, which means if one comes in, that's significant. But it's also hard to do ads campaign on that because it's just a long process. So that's one. There are organic outreaches. Network is super important. So a lot of our clients came through personal recommendations. So people I know from the industry who I've either worked with already or who are really, really good friends or are in the same shoes, other studio founders recommending us or existing clients recommending us. And the third one, where I see a bit of movement now, is we have a European representative, who's also a very, very well-connected person, that has been in the industry for 20 years, and he introduces us to clients in Europe, because we're based in New Zealand. My network is in New Zealand and Australia. It's not in Europe, even though I'm from Europe. In these cases, it's super, super helpful.
Right. And where do you want to take the studio itself? Do you want to have a big exit in 20 years from now? What's your plan with it?
So because we raised VC funding, I forgot to mention that we did raise VC funding. The reality is that we would want to have an exit in 7 odd years, if we want to be nice to our investors who invested in us, or we need to find a way to buy them out. What I would like to achieve is I would like to put out multiple original IPs of our own. I would like to be successful. I would want us to have a lot more focus on first-party development. But I've made the mistake in the past that when we raised VC money, we bootstrapped ourselves through third party. That's how it started. And when we raised money to make our own game, we completely scaled down our third-party development. And when the first party didn't work out, we basically had no revenue. So we got to a place where we were very close to running out of money. It was the matter of a few months that we would have died. And it didn't happen, fortunately, because we could restart third party. But what I learned from this is I'm never going to stop third party development. That's just always going to exist, because it provides us the safety net, and it's also fun. But yeah, so I'm never going to stop third party development. I would like us to do more original IPs, which means in order to do this, we'll need to grow. I'd like us to be at least 30 people, potentially more. Probably don't want to go above 60, because at that point, the company changes completely. It's going to change a few times from now as well, given that we're 16. But yeah, that's kind of where I want us to be: develop our own IPs and make larger games as well. That would be cool.
Right. So what are your priorities for this year? What do you want to accomplish? Are you heads down on new project? Are you actively seeking other projects and prospecting? What are your priorities as a CEO?
So I used to do a lot more programming in the past. I don't do that anymore. Unfortunately, I don't have the time. And I remember there's a guy called Chris Du who runs the future, and he said, I think multiple times, that the biggest cost to your business is you working in your business instead of on your business. So I'm really trying to not be a cost to the business. Most of my time goes into to business development. So I reach out to clients, I talk to clients, do all the normal things you need to do as a CEO, which is talk to key vendors like accounting, legal, all that kind of stuff. That's not the most exciting part of running a studio. But I do work a lot with potential clients. And I have a Christmas goal. I would like us to have 2 signed clients by the end of the year, who we can work with. I have 18 leads in the pipeline right now. So it's not unrealistic. It's not unrealistic. There's been a huge increase of people reaching out in the past 1.5 months. So most likely we're going to be busy. But that's my goal: get 2 clients. For the next 3 years, I want us to have at least 3 consecutive clients we work with. Because if anything happens to one of them, like, you don't know what's going on in the industry. Like, someone might close, someone might have other things they need to do. If one goes out, we're still fine. So I want us to be in that space that no matter what happens, unless the whole industry blows up again, we're gonna be fine. And it's kind of where I want us to be.
And how are you guys different? And have you been integrating AI technologies as of late?
So there's two questions to unpack there. So there's the how are we different? There's not many studios who specifically focus on the technical side of Unreal Engine. I know about two. There's probably more, but I know about two. Whereas if you look at how many game studios offer, we do all these engines, Unity, Unreal, we do all art, everything, web free. Like it's just, you get this, like, we do everything, give us work. There's a lot of those. And obviously, if you have an idea that you want to develop a Unity mobile game, if I can hire the Unity mobile game specialist, or I can hire the I do everything, I'll most likely hire the Unity specialist. And that's the same thing for us as a technical Unreal Engine studio. There's not, like, there is competition, but not as much, if that makes sense. And I'm very lucky to have a lot of industry veterans in the team. So I have some of the original developers of Fable 1, Black and White 2, Alien versus Predator, Path of Exile, Planet Zoo, Jurassic World Evolution 2. Like there's a lot of talent to unpack there, and I've just been very fortunate to have them with me. Second part of the question, AI. So I think at this point, well, there's two terms of AI that you can talk in game development. There's one which is the what most people are talking about now, which is the artificial intelligence, machine learning, that sort of stuff. We do use some of it. I actually spoke with some of our artists just to check on this, to make sure I know exactly what we're using. But we do use a couple of things. So Photoshop is an industry standard tool. Photoshop has AI features. So Photoshop, for example, can fill parts of an image. You can decide to cut out the background and say, hey, instead of the night sky, I want a Martian looking planet to be in the background. And it does it for you. And voila, you have a really cool concept art, or you can even adjust a full 3D scene, which is pretty nice. Obviously, we use ChatGPT to bounce ideas or even ask for feedback, which is just kind of funny when, like, we send something in and you get feedback before you would share it with other humans. It's kind of the rubber duck test that you would normally do as a programmer. Like, you ask the rubber ducky before you ask others, because oftentimes you figure out the answer before you finish asking the question. That has another layer when it comes to asking ChatGPT, because it might actually give you extra ideas. But I use it for just general running company stuff as well. One of my friends who runs a studio in New Zealand told me that the best way he saved on legal costs is instead of getting everything drafted up by a lawyer, he gets the document drafted up by ChatGPT, sends it over to review for the lawyer, and his lawyer was like, "Oh wow, this is very well written. Now there you go. These are the things you would change. Cost you 20% of the original cost that it would have." So these are nice. Other than that, we've actually just done a project where we're using NVIDIA Omniverse. It's the audio to face feature, and we also use AI generated audio for like testing voice lines. But what the Omniverse audio to face feature does is we basically developed a character. It's a bull-headed character where you can read up AI voice lines or any kind of voice line, and it automatically matches with its facial animations how it should look like when he's talking. Obviously, I had to work a lot on the character to get this done, but it just gets you out of the box options for you to be able to run unlimited amount of voice lines. So we've set this up. It didn't cost too much, to be honest. And now the client has a character which is going to be their mascot, where they can run any voice line and they can use it in their marketing material, and that's all they need to do, and it just does the whole thing.
Very cool. So are you raising some more money, and why should a VC invest in you as a founder?
So that's a good question. I am not against raising more money, but we're in a space we raised over $2 million at this point. And because we had to make a massive pivot, the next round that I would want to raise at is either a half seed round or skip the whole thing and go to Series A. Because we raised a half seed round, it might be beneficial to raise the other half. So I don't know if we're going to be raising right now. With that said, I'm talking to VCs. I was supposed to talk to someone tonight. I'm going to be talking to them on Friday. So I am open to the idea, but it needs to make sense in terms of dilution, because I don't want to raise an amount that is not enough to reach the next stage and still dilute like this was an early pre-seed or a seed round. So it really depends on what kind of deal we can agree on. I guess the reason someone should invest in us is it's already a proven team. We've worked on multiple games. It's not like if we get money to make a game, because people are giving us money to make games, it's not like we can't deliver it. And I think this is a really important skill for any founder, is get close to dying and not die. Like that part is gonna happen to everyone unless you are extremely lucky. I have not met a founder who either didn't go bankrupt or almost died in the process. So if you can navigate this, you probably can tackle another similar situation.
How did you deal with it psychologically? How did you get through it?
Oh, that was fun. It wasn't. So I'll tell you what happened exactly. So just to give full context to the whole story. So basically, back in 2023 November, we were working on our original IP, and in order to complete it, to be able to deliver it, we needed to raise money from publishers, and we need over $3 million. We were talking to 20 different publishers, from EA to Ubisoft to all the big names you can imagine. And within 6 months, the 20 names went down to 2 without us doing anything. It's basically because the gaming industry just collapsed, and all publishers either decided we're doing larger amount of funding or way less. All the area where we had to navigate was gone. So we basically had an option of either try to repitch to those 2 publishers who are most likely not going to fund us and die trying, because we would run out of money immediately after we do the pitch, or completely change course and pivot and bring back third-party development, put this game on hold, cut the team in half, and hope that we can find a client. And like, we obviously didn't go bankrupt, and Criminals Within is not out, so we took the pivot route, and that was terrible. Like, that was the letting people go part. I don't think I'm ever gonna get used to it. Like, I handle it better, but it's terrible every time. Like, I just know the feeling by now, like what it's gonna be, but I don't want to do it ever. And that's the worst feeling, when like I had to speak with people who I knew I would never let go unless I was forced to. And that was the worst. Like, I dropped tears, and that's it's easy to say like, oh, it's hard for me as well. It's really fucking hard. So yeah, that part was really difficult. And then March was the time when we signed our first client, and we were actually already talking to the team, telling them like, look, if we do not sign something, we'll need to send out notices. And we set a deadline for ourselves, which was the 31st of March. And that was a Friday, and we were talking to a client on Friday, a potential client on Friday. And I remember they said like, look, we're either going to sign you today or we're just not going to sign. And we went on to the call, and it went terribly wrong. I was like, this is going so bad. And the call ended, and like it was very obvious that it went wrong. And then we got a message like, oh, wait a second, we completely misunderstood you. That's why we were thinking you were conning us. So like, obviously we were not conning them. And then we had a call the next day, and Friday was the 31st. So I went to sleep on Friday that like, I have to go back on Monday and tell the team that that's it. And Saturday we had another call and we signed them.
Whoa.
So that was really close. Sorry for swearing, but it's like it just lives vividly in my mind. Like,
wow.
It was so close.
And what lessons did you learn from that? Like, are you more careful with cash flow nowadays? Are you more careful? Do you hire less? Are you more careful with the payrolls? So what did you learn from that?
Well, a couple of things is raising VC money isn't necessarily the most efficient way of spending your money. In fact, you're gonna have VCs who are gonna ask you to do certain things that you would not do, and it would not make sense to do. In hindsight, I would do a lot of things differently. We certainly wasted some money that we didn't need to spend. So I would, even if I was to raise VC money, I would still want to make sure that the company is going to survive no matter what. And this might not be the best interest of VCs, because you want to make sure they go big, and going medium is way less appetizing than trying to go big and die. And like, well, that's part of having a portfolio that some of them will die. You just need to know as a founder that that's not necessarily the best interest for you. The other one, and one of these was scaling down third party for us. I would never do that again. I would just keep that going. I can manage it. There's often time concern that you won't have the full focus on your other game. It's not the case. You can do it. Other people can do it. So I would definitely focus on making sure that even if things go wrong, you have something you can rely on. And yeah, this is very game development specific. We did go into publishing discussions knowing that we'll need 30 people to develop this game. So if you go there saying you have 5 people, it's hard to believe you're gonna go up to 30 very easily for a publisher, which means they might not fund you. Cash flow wise, it's way worse to go up to 16 people and then hope you get a publishing deal. You have way less time. I would honestly focus a lot more on the pre-production aspect, which usually happens before you can raise publisher funding. I would just tackle it with a leaner team and hire when we know things are going well. So that was definitely a mistake on our end. We have assumed we were going to raise publisher funding because things were looking good, and then the industry collapsed. So yeah.
Wow. That was an interesting story. Thanks for sharing that. Like lots of valuable lesson in there. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
I mean, we have a website called www.spacerockgames.com, where there's a lot of information about what we do. I'm on LinkedIn, so if you take a screenshot of my name here, then you'll be able to find me and just pop me a message. It's pronounced Zsombor Pirok, so I just figured out the screen cap instead because it doesn't naturally come to English speaking people. Yeah, those two avenues is probably the best.